Nearly 9,500 threats were made against members of Congress last year. That number should have set off alarms across the country. But here's the part that stunned everyone: only 8 convictions came out of those thousands of cases. When Congressman Joe Morelle confronted Attorney General Pam Bondi about this shocking gap, he wasn't just asking for statistics, he was forcing her to face the reality of a justice system that seems broken on purpose. And what followed revealed exactly why so many Americans feel like accountability has vanished from Washington. Morelle's opening question cut straight to the heart of the matter.
So,
Governor, I'm sorry if I can keep going. I'm sorry. I don't mean
Quickly,
to.
though.
I filibuster. Governor Shapiro and what happened in Pennsylvania with Governor Shapiro. I've spoken to Governor Shapiro. We are working hand in hand, our U.S. attorney with the district attorney there, hand in hand, just like in Minnesota. I made sure our U.S. attorney and our district attorneys there were working hand in hand. Political party doesn't matter when something like this happens. And I also want to make sure all members of Congress are safe as well.
Okay, and I would reiterate, Chairman Stile and I think Chairman Stile and I agree that at least a part-time in each of the 94 districts would be appropriate. Let me change topics for just a moment.
I'm really quick on that. Yes, we're doing that through our National Security Division, so I think that's already in the works, and I would be glad to meet with you in a secure facility to talk about that.
Very good, thank you. Continuing, in addition to my role here, the committee that I serve on as an authorizer oversees Capitol security as well as federal elections, so I'm closely following the aftermath of January 6th. Recently, several defendants who received presidential pardons related to that day are now arguing in court that the pardon covers crimes like, for instance, illegal firearm possession discovered in a search of an individual's home in California months after January 6th. What's your position on whether the pardons cover these separate offenses?
The pardon power rests with the president, not the Department of Justice, and some of that is pending litigation, and I cannot discuss pending litigation.
Well, I'm not asking you about who has the right to a pardon. I think as the Department of Justice in February wrote, the pardon is an act of grace which removes the punishment from a crime a person has committed. It further said, in its effect, the granting of a pardon is in no sense the overturning of a judgment of conviction. It is an executive action that mitigates or sets aside punishment. So as the chief law enforcement officer, what's your opinion, not the president's power of whether he can offer a pardon? That's pretty clear in the Constitution. But for crimes committed unrelated to January 6th, would you suggest that the pardons would cover activities or crimes potentially committed outside of that by the same person?
Well, I don't know if you're referring to Joe Biden pardoning his son after he said he would not pardon Hunter Biden, or the
No, I actually
commutation
referred
of
to
all
January 6th. I'm sorry.
all the sentences that the people that were on death row. I've met with those families.
No,
all of those sentences were commuted. I'm not going to comment on pardons on either side of the aisle.
So, well, I'm not asking about either side. I'm asking, you're the chief law enforcement officer in the United States. You have a responsibility directly, but you sworn oath to the Constitution, not the president. Want to know what your views are on the extent to which pardons cover potential crimes committed by individuals who've been pardoned but unrelated to January 6th.
Do you mean the ones that were done by the auto pen? I'm not going to discuss
right.
anything that
Mr.
could
Chairman,
be or not be
I
pending litigation.
respectfully, Ms. DeLauro accused you of filibustering. I think that's the height of filibustering. This is a serious, serious topic, and for you to suggest that you don't have an opinion or to divert to other things that had nothing to do with January 6 pardons, I think is frankly demeaning to your responsibilities and your job. With that, I'll yield back.
Would Bondi commit to assigning federal prosecutors in every single district to prioritize these threats against lawmakers? On its face, that sounds like a reasonable request. If members of Congress are being threatened at record numbers, shouldn't the Department of Justice treat it like the crisis it is? But instead of answering directly, Bondi swerved. She dragged in references to Biden, talked about other states, mentioned coordination meetings, and tried to bury the central question in a pile of vague reassurances. It was a performance, not an answer, and everyone watching knew it. That deflection mattered because the numbers themselves are damning. Almost 10,000 incidents, yet just a handful of convictions. Imagine any other crime with those odds. If there were 9,500 robberies in a year and only 8 people ever saw a courtroom, the public would call it what it is, a total collapse of enforcement. And when you look at the source of many of these threats, the picture becomes even clearer. They aren't random. They're rooted in the same anger, conspiracy theories, and extremist rhetoric that fueled the attack on January 6. Pretending that these are isolated cases is dishonest. They're symptoms of a larger movement, one that Bondi seems unwilling to confront directly. Instead, her strategy was the oldest trick in Washington: change the subject. She leaned on phrases like pending litigation to dodge specifics. She repeated lines about national security divisions and coordination with states, hoping those words would sound authoritative enough to shut down the conversation. But none of it explained why thousands of threats have gone unanswered. And that's what Morelle refused to let her escape from. He pressed harder, forcing her back to the uncomfortable truth she didn't want to say out loud: the system isn't working because it isn't meant to. The exchange then turned to something even more explosive: the debate over pardons. Morelle highlighted reports of January 6 defendants who, after receiving presidential pardons, are now in court arguing that those pardons should shield them from unrelated charges like firearm possession months later. Just hearing that claim feels absurd. A pardon for storming the Capitol is somehow supposed to erase crimes committed long after the fact. It's an argument that turns the concept of justice upside down. And yet, when asked for her position, Bondi dodged again. This is where the conversation became bigger than one hearing. Pardons have always been controversial, but they were designed to be extraordinary, a last resort, a rare act of grace. They were never supposed to be political rewards. But under this new playbook, pardons are treated like loyalty prizes, a way to buy silence or protect allies no matter what they've done. That's not mercy, that's corruption dressed up in legal language. And Joe Morelle wasn't just exposing Bondi's evasions, he was exposing how far the system has drifted from its original purpose. The danger here isn't theoretical. If presidents can hand out pardons as political favors, it creates two classes of citizens: one group life under the law, the other lives above it, shielded by connections and party loyalty. That kind of double standard is poison for democracy. And the more Bondi refused to confront that reality, the clearer it became that she was protecting something bigger than herself. She was protecting the very machine that benefits from those double standards. What Bondi didn't say speaks louder than what she did. As Attorney General, her job is to uphold the Constitution, not serve as a shield for the president or his allies. Yet every answer she gave was crafted to avoid crossing that political line. She wasn't defending the law. She was defending her side. And in doing so, she revealed the exact problem Morelle was trying to spotlight: a justice system that bends when political power demands it. And think about the broader implications. If thousands of threats against lawmakers can be brushed aside, what does that mean for ordinary citizens? If political violence can be pardoned, what's to stop future leaders from using that power to protect not just insurrectionists but anyone loyal enough to their cause? That's how democracies slide into something darker, when the law stops being a shield for everyone and becomes a weapon for the few. Morelle's persistence made the stakes impossible to ignore. He refused to let Bondi escape behind jargon or misdirection. Every time she tried to pivot, he pulled her back to the core issue: accountability. And accountability is exactly what's missing. The threats, the pardons, the evasions, they all point to the same conclusion. The system is failing not by accident, but by design. Because when the crimes come from inside the political base, the will to prosecute suddenly disappears. By the end of the exchange, one truth stood out above everything else. This wasn't just a debate about pardons or about resources for prosecutors. It was a clash between two visions of America. In one, the rule of law applies equally, no matter how powerful or connected you are. In the other, loyalty buys you protection, and violence against democracy itself can be excused with the stroke of a pen. Bondi tried to blur that line. Morelle forced it into focus. The question now is, what comes next? If presidents can rewrite accountability with pardons, if threats against lawmakers can pile up without consequence, then the rule of law isn't just weakened, it's optional. And once it becomes optional, the very idea of democracy starts to crumble. That's why this exchange matters far beyond the walls of Congress. It's not about one hearing or one official. It's about the future of a system that only works if everyone is held to the same standard. Pam Bondi's evasions may have bought her a few moments of cover in that room, but they also exposed the deeper rot underneath. Americans watching could see the pattern: talk tough about security, but do nothing when the threats come from your own side. Defend the Constitution in speeches, but dodge when asked to apply it to your allies. That's not justice, it's politics dressed up as law, and it's exactly what's pushing faith in institutions to the breaking point. So where does that leave us? With a choice. Either we accept a system where power protects its own, or we demand accountability no matter where it leads. Joe Morelle's questioning was more than a political moment, it was a warning, because if pardons become political currency and threats go unanswered, the cost isn't just credibility, the cost is democracy itself. What do you think? Should presidents have unlimited pardon power, even for political allies, or should there be limits to stop abuse before it destroys what's left of accountability? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns of these pivotal moments, don't forget to hit subscribe, because the next story we're covering is even more revealing and it's one you won't want to miss.